bleeped out.
All right, everybody. It is Thursday, and I want to welcome everybody, as soon as I find my guitar pick, to the Garden Party podcast. Where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? I'm so off today. All right, here we go. Here we go. This is the Garden Party, and we want a garden party with you. We talk about the plants we grow and some things you might not know. The Garden Party. Phil, introduce yourself, brother.
Hey, Facebook. It's Phil from Phil's Figs, your favorite plant parent and regular parent, too. Back on the podcast.
Yeah, y'all are like an hour apart, aren't y'all, from North Carolina? I think y'all are, huh?
I
Ashlie,
think.
sorry. Introduce yourself, Ashlie. I'm sorry, I just broke right into that. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm Ashlie, the Mocha gardener. I'm excited to be here, chatting it up. I love a party. I love a wholesome garden party. So I'm excited. And I wish I could play the guitar because I need a theme song too. So
If it makes you feel better, I took like 3 months of guitar lessons, and so I can play anything with like four chords. You know, like with like 4 or 5 chords, anything longer than that. I got fat little sausage fingers, which is great for like digging up carrots and tomatoes and stuff like that. But it's not great for spreading your fingers like long and stuff like that. So it's
well,
not great for that.
that might be on my list of things. My fingers are like picks, so it
Oh,
might
there you
be
go.
calling to play.
Oh.
There you go. I like that. Well, I am Destin Nowak, the Texas Garden Guy, and we do this Garden Party podcast every single Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. We are having some crazy weather here in Texas. Like it feels like spring right now. I don't know how it feels where y'all are at, but let's talk about spring garden, spring seed starting. Right? Let's talk about that.
Well, I planted a bunch of seeds, and I'm just, every last inch of my greenhouse, I'm shoving plants into and seed starters into. And I'm almost down to just the path to my workbench. Everything else is just covered with plants. And so, but I'm excited. I got my tomatoes in, I have the peppers, I have my overwintered peppers, and then I have all my different greens that I've been dragging my feet on putting in the ground. But they're in seed trays now.
Nice, nice.
Ashlie, tell us what you've started so far. What have you started by seed?
Nothing.
Oh my God.
Well, honestly, I haven't started anything in the greenhouse because we're kind of transitioning right now. We are going to be downsizing our garden this year because we're going to be focusing on developing our homestead
Oh,
that
cool.
we recently procured. So I have a lot of leafy greens already in the garden that's kind of wintering over, but it's going to come for the spring. So we're going to I anticipate those things coming back full bloom come spring. And we're just going to maintain those. I also have some stuff that we're starting for a community garden. I mean, I'm laying low. I'm laying a little low because I'm going to need all of this muscle to work the ground and till ground and prepare our homestead.
Absolutely. Well, y'all are both in North Carolina, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's a mecca for like YouTube homesteaders. It's like
It could, I mean,
all of like my favorite homesteaders are like right there in North Carolina. You got Sow the Land, you got Justin Rhodes, you got there's a couple other ones. Sow the Land does a podcast with a couple different other homesteaders, but like there's a ton right there in North Carolina. It seems like it's a hub.
Mm-hmm.
we have good soil here, and maybe this is the geologist in me, but you have It's literally just three regions of North Carolina. Like Appalachia, you have the Piedmont, and you have the coastal plain, and all the sediment from the degrading mountains has always just kind of flowed that way, and so it's kind of like this nutrient flow of those uplifted mountains of the Appalachians. So maybe that's why.
Probably our climate as well.
And yep.
we get the best of both worlds. Like we get the humidity, we get the heat. It doesn't get to like 105 the way it may over there where you are. But we've got also the colder weather as well. It doesn't dip down into the negatives like some places, but we've got that temperate climate that gives us a lot of versatility with what we can grow. Given we can't do citrus stuff, but or maybe you can. It depends on who.
I have a few in the ground that I'm getting away with, and I'm pushing the limits on. But I'm also in the sliver of North Carolina that's palm tree
That's
country. Yeah, because I'm only an
You're
hour
also a
north of
risk
Myrtle
taker.
Beach. Only
right.
always,
Yeah, you're a
only
risk taker,
always.
man.
A little on the
No,
edge, man.
I definitely felt like the shoemaker. I heard the saying, "The shoemaker's kids go shoeless." Like
Mm-hmm.
that's how I felt. That's how I felt this year with seed starting,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't start my tomatoes till probably about. I started some, but it didn't get warm enough in my greenhouse or my garage. Um, but I last week we did a podcast with 30 Pump Gardening, and
Yeah,
you and him, Phil, were talking about the importance of heat mats under
yeah.
your seed starts. I have like several heat mats in my garage. I just haven't been using them
Mm-hmm.
because I'm running out of plugs,
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, but
Yeah.
I emptied out my garage, and I was like, let's get the seed starts and let's try it with the heat mats and see how well it does. And like literally the next day, like tomatoes are germinating. Like it's so fast, dude. So like that is a testament to like if you listen to the podcast, you will learn things, and that heat mats are definitely a good investment.
For
Phil, you
sure.
said you even use them for like your propagations, right? Like
Yeah, my
for
fig cuttings,
propagation.
I definitely use them. I'm actually testing some without, and like this is maybe because I'm a small plant nursery and I'm a scientist, but I freaking constantly test what things are working and what aren't, and you're pushing the limits again. And there's a significant difference that if I can get a heat mat up to 90 degrees and put a tray on top with the pots in the tray, that displacement of energy, it probably gets to the 70s in the pots, and that makes all the difference when the ambient air temperature is in the 50s in the greenhouse at night.
Yeah. What about you? Do you use heat mats, Ashley?
Yes, I have heat mats under all of my trays. And I will never not use heat mats for the foreseeable future. I don't know. I hope that, I don't know what I'm going to do in a few years, but for the foreseeable future, I am going to be using those because I said I have one that I can control the temperature.
Oh,
So
cool.
during the winter, uh, that we don't have we keep like a propane heater in our greenhouse
Mhm.
just to kind of keep everything from dropping into freezing temperatures. But the heating mats help with germination. Like I'm seeing germination rate where the viability of my seeds have been a little
Hmm.
crazy, but the heating mat is actually helping to ensure that everything germinates. And I keep it at about 83
Okay.
degrees.
Oh, wow.
If I go a little too high, I don't want to scorch everything, but I think that 83, I've been doing that for the past few years, and I just get a lot of success. I keep water under the trays as well,
Yeah.
to it serves as kind of like a buffer, and it keeps the heat kind of radiating equally over everything or under everything. So I am a firm believer in heating mats, and I highly recommend getting them, y'all.
Yeah,
I
and
like
would
that
that be?
idea of putting the water underneath because then it probably adds, like when I'm trying to propagate things, humidity encourages propagation. And so if you're
Yeah.
doing that slow evaporation, even encourages better humidity.
That's right. It creates like this greenhouse effect because
Hmm.
I keep them covered until they get a certain height, and then I've got to thin them out. But that's just a method that I have tried, and I like researching. I do it for a living, and
Oh, cool.
and I find that trial and error, but there are just some things that you don't have to experiment on. There's a lot
Yes.
of evidence out there that it actually works, so it saves you a little bit of time and resources to do so.
Right. And what is your background? So the reason we got you on is because you actually got a book. We love getting. I'm a book person. Phil's
We
a
got
book person, and so we love books. And so you wrote your book, How to Become a Gardener, which I guess is such a great like title because I feel like there's so many people nowadays, with the price of everything going up, with the quality of stuff we can get at the stores nowadays, so many people are, from, having an acre or two to having a small backyard, want to become a gardener in some form.
That's
And
right.
Mhm.
so tell us how like your inspiration to write the book.
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for supporting and getting the book. Um,
Absolutely.
and thank you for mentioning it. I
I've got a bunch of books I haven't read. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
you know what? You at least you got it. So I'm here for that. I that's my gratitude. Um, so to me, how to become a gardener, like when I think about my own journey or, just me getting into gardening, there are so many resources, almost too many, like there's just so much information out there. And one thing that I found was really just kind of stopping and instead of just putting a book out to talk about this is how you garden, there's a crucial step to even getting to that point, in my opinion. And this is just my perspective. But I hear so many people say, oh, I don't have a green thumb. I kill everything. And it's just not for me. I tried a succulent and, back when I was 5 years old and I just can't, it died and I would never be able to grow anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we all have that story. If you didn't kill a plant, that means that you didn't try.
Right.
So to me, becoming a gardener, it's a process, right? To become this person that is a bit more cognizant of the life around you, that's a bit more cognizant about, what you're feeding your environment and what you allow the environment to feed you.
Yeah.
So that's what I really wanted to highlight. It was more so let's focus on cultivating you before you go out cultivating other things, other, organisms, because then it opens your awareness, right? How can you be
Right.
aware of something you're not aware of yourself? So that's part of the becoming, just being a good steward of
Mhm.
yourself so that you can be a good steward over the things that you're going to be cultivating in this green space of yours.
I love
That's
that. I
so well
love that.
said.
Thank you.
It's
No,
both introspective and fourth dimensional, right? So it's very
Yeah,
much like thinking about yourself and how, I'm going to get cheesy, but how you grow as you become a
that's
gardener, right?
that's
right.
right. And I will say it's not all introspective, so don't think that
Mhm.
you're going to be in a cerebral place once you're like going through
Yeah.
it. But
I mean,
it's
I've
it's
been there.
It's it's got great pictures for the dummies out there like me who like you got. Are all these pictures from like your homestead? Are these
yes,
all your pictures?
yes, yes, yes. I would be
Dang,
an
beautiful.
if I
Uh,
would be an imposter if I didn't have that. But I will say that I do have other gardeners because I feel like sometimes we all needed a little bit of inspiration.
Yeah.
And what this is really highlighting is not just this idea of becoming a gardener, but really the importance of recognizing what is food to you. So if we're going to go out and grow food, we need to figure out like, what does it mean to be empowered to grow things and then to figure out what I want to grow here, and then I provide tips and all of the things that kind of our journey, but also helping people to get started, but starting with themselves first. So I
Yeah.
hope folks can kind of get a lot of learnings in that sense.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. Everybody in the chat, make sure y'all are following Farmer Phil and following the Mocha Gardener. And if y'all have any gardening questions for spring, I like to get people from I'm the Texas garden guy, but I like to get people from all around the U.S. So these guys are from North Carolina. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. And we got someone from New Zealand
And,
in the chat. So that's really
oh,
cool.
nice. Well, good
Yeah, got a
morning to you in
Kiwi.
New Zealand.
I got a Kiwi in the mix.
Yeah. Hey, Ashley, where in North Carolina are you?
I am in Alamance County. So I know a lot of people don't even know where that is. It's
I was
actually
like,
right
Greensboro?
Chapel Hill,
Yeah.
yep, equal distance from Chapel Hill, Greensboro, and Durham. So we're like boop, right there in the middle. I know exactly where Wilmington is. My
Yeah.
sister-in-law lived there,
Oh,
so it's
nice.
so beautiful there. I
It's
love
so
it.
beautiful. We got blue
You gotta,
water. We
you gotta
got the
go get a
ocean
fig. You gotta get some
and
Yeah.
figs.
figs.
We have tons of fig trees. Actually, I'm going to hook you up.
Yes, please, because I don't have a please. I'm like, I was gonna like drop into like your DMs and say, help.
Anytime.
No,
Like that's my free like pitch to people. I'm like, if you with me, like you get free account management for your figs. So just hit me up. We'll get some figs going on your plate for you next spring or next fall.
Say less.
yeah. Everybody who comes on the podcast. So me and Phil first met on Instagram, and we did an episode. I do another podcast called the Texas Garden Guy Show, where I just interview people one on one. And I was like, "Ooh, I love figs. This guy loves figs. He loves it.
Yeah,
He loves them so much. His whole channel is based around figs. But like, we nerded out on figs for like an hour and a half. And
we did.
every person we get on, we end up like becoming like the Johnny Appleseeds of figs, like trying to like, hey,
I'm ready for
let's
that.
do some cuttings.
Yeah. No, we're
Cuttings.
like it's like Oprah's like you get a fig and you get a fig. Yeah.
They're fascinating though, because when I think about figs, like they've kind of transcended time.
Yes.
This is a fruit that has been in existence for like for centuries, and just really what it means so to so many cultures.
Hmm.
I'm all about culturally relevant foods, and figs are just one of those things that you can find it in so many different cultures, and that's the
So
beautiful
many.
thing. So
And
I'm
right.
probably going to ask you some questions about figs.
I would
You
yeah,
go
have
ahead.
at it.
Yeah. So like where did you like why figs and how did you get into that? And yeah, I'm so fascinated.
It all started for me with my heavy Italian side of my dad's side.
Mhm.
And all the immigrants that came over from Italy and Greece and a lot of the Mediterranean countries snuck in fig cuttings. And
Mhm.
each fig cutting has a family story tied to it. Every fig that was brought over wasn't just any fig they grabbed, it was a very special fig to them. And
Mm.
so, with all of basically the provenance of these figs, and the genetic diversity of figs in and of themselves, we have like this endless, unique supply of figs
Yeah.
that is across cultures in America. So it's associated with the melting pot of America in a lot of ways too, right? From European immigration, but it transcended through multiple historical events, going all the way back to the beginning of civilization when they talk about the Sumerians in Mesopotamia, right? And so
Yep.
like, but and then and like that is like the beginning of culture. That's like the beginning of agriculture because it's one of the easiest things to propagate. It's not
Yep.
always the easiest. People definitely, I kill cuttings all the time, but you can stick it in and it has its own rooting nodes and lenticles on every node, so it can produce its own growth. And I think that there's evidence that that's what stimulated like the concept of agriculture in a lot of ways. But you see it in every biblical, every um,
Yeah.
religious, theological reference across all cultures. And so there's too
Yep.
much backstory on every fig that, it's an endless search for a discovery of what it means to somebody.
Ah, so fun. And that's exactly what I was talking about. Just, even just growing up reading it
Hmm.
about figs in the Bible,
Right.
um, see how food can grow with us as humans and how it evolves is so beautiful. And that's why I went into nutrition because
Okay.
food is everything, right?
Right.
When like vaccine research and therapeutics, and I was just like, I really love food and I love research, and clash bang everything together. But that is the beauty, and I'm so fascinated about kind of the evolution of foods and how it pertains to the evolution of people as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost everything that we know until like civilized society and what guided us, like I get pumped up over tomatoes too, right? Because
Hmm.
they're a new world plant.
Hmm.
And Europe is like Italy specifically is obsessed with tomatoes. Well, because of how they brought it over to Mount Vesuvius there, right? And so like again, how cultures are tied together and how it came to be. And same with potatoes and other nightshades, right? Anyway, I'm pumped. You got me. You struck a chord with me. I'm pretty fired up.
No, when I did my fig in my fig slideshow that I do with my fig presentation, I always show that, I think it was it's in the Sistine Chapel, or it's a painting by Leonardo da Vinci, and it's depicting like Adam and Eve, and everybody always calls it like the apple tree, like the in the Garden of Eden. But in
Mm,
almost every picture, every painting you see, it's got broad leaves that look just like fig leaves. It does not look like an apple leaf in every single depiction. And so
Stop
it's
it.
pretty wild. Yeah, go back and look. That's like
You
some
know
of the
I'm
pictures.
going to. I'm going to stay up all night researching this.
Oh yeah. Well, and I always recommend
you just told
the
the
fig book.
researcher to research something. She's gonna
I
go. She's gonna peel back that onion.
I'm for rabbit holes. Like, this is my life.
Yes. No, I always recommend this book, and I can never find it. It's the fig book
The
that's
figs
really
wasp.
good.
Let me grab it off my nightstand.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. I told Phil about it, and I think he's reading. Phil got me intrigued. So Phil has a technique of reading where he reads a book that's like fiction, and he reads a nonfiction and a fiction
One.
at the same time. And
Yeah.
that's the one. That's the one right there. And it goes back to like the history of the figs and why they're
Very
so
cool.
important.
So, I'm going to have what's the name of
Screenshot.
this?
It's called
Screenshot.
Gods, Wasps, and Stranglers: The Secret History and Redemptive Future of Fig Trees.
Okay. Wow.
And then there's
That's
this
so
one too. Figs: A Global History. I think this is also. I suggest this. It's
excellent.
a succinct read. It's only 100 pages, but take your time with it. And then
Yeah, yeah.
but
The
yeah,
fig one, the fig wasp one, isn't super long either. I think it's like
Okay.
maybe 200 pages. It's not that
yeah.
long.
Excellent. I'm used to reading textbooks, so that's refreshing. I can.
Wait, so
Right?
I'm curious what you do professionally and you do nutrition research?
Yes, nutrition research. So I actually went from like research vaccine design into
Hmm.
research management with building therapeutics. And I started, doing, I was always about food and
Yeah,
food policy, food security, and really just how it pertains to, the health of people. So I decided to just crank that thing and pivot right into nutrition. And it was a
got
nice little pivot because it,
yeah,
allowed me to kind of flex that research arm. And so finishing my grad degree in nutrition and food sciences. And I really just want to kind of focus in on food systems, but also the more of the epidemiology, how food systems impact human health.
oh
And
great.
I believe ag plays right into all of this. Ag
Hmm.
is environment, ag is health, ag is, and by ag, I mean agriculture for those who don't
Right.
understand
Hmm.
that. That's a short term for agriculture here. But it intersects so many different domains and it's highly applicable. So that's kind of my background, nutrition. I also do health coaching, especially with patients with chronic diseases, just really folding in, nutrition and helping people to understand how to improve their health and wellness through what they eat.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah,
that's awesome.
it's that's really awesome. No, that's what's so cool about doing this podcast. Like, I'll have people on, and I won't even realize like, oh, you're a doctor, like you're like all these different professions, and I'm just like a dum dum who plays in the dirt in my backyard. So it's so much fun to like hear different perspectives and different like you know the ways of thinking about certain things, especially when it comes to the food system and veggies and all that good stuff. It's
So I correct you. I'm still a squirrel playing in my backyard. So that's what I do, professionally. But
The
the
me,
full
yeah.
me, squirrel out in the backyard getting dirty. I'm right there with you.
well, and that kind of goes back to what you were saying about like being in the garden, growing vegetables, growing fruit. It's not all about the growing the products; it's about growing yourself. Like that's especially because like I talk to a lot of people who have like PTSD and stuff. And, I'm an Air Force vet, and so I hear from people how much gardening and, being out there doing some manual work. And, but when I get off work, I like to go spend at least like 30 minutes in the garden before I'm done. Go out there, get my hands dirty, pull some weeds, plant some seeds, and it kind of takes my mind off everything. But I hear from so many vets and so many people like that are, we've gotten accustomed to being these indoor people now.
Mhm.
You don't have to go outside and kill your food or anything anymore. You just order it on DoorDash. You never have to leave your couch, pretty much.
That's right.
And so it's so important whether you're growing, tomatoes, okra, figs, whatever. That's my opinion, and my tactic to get people to garden for the first time is usually start with one. Start with one plant.
Start with one.
That's right.
Start with something that you love to eat. Say like you like tomatoes. Well, start with one tomato plant.
That's right.
And next year you move to 3 tomato plants, and then you throw in a squash plant. And so it's definitely, and I'm seeing it now that people are wanting to go back to that way of life. I think nowadays I see it Phil with his kids. Everybody I talk to on the podcast, they get their families and their children involved, and I think it's going to change the way the next generation
That's right.
Interacts with their food system. I think.
That's right.
And I think it doesn't mean everyone has to go to homesteading. It just has to be like, this is the educational piece that you kind of touched on, Ashlie, is like just knowing where our food comes from, how it grows and how it behaves, and like just the process of how it gets to your plate, whether it's an animal or a plant. And before social media and the internet, where we had abundance of this, like all the gardening stuff I learned about was from my family. And so if your family generations have been displaced over time from gardening, that knowledge can be lost until we've had this boom in social media, where I've learned so much in the past year since starting Phil's Figs, collaborating with everybody, that that the options are endless of what we can learn now. But being a steward and like reaching out and engaging with communities as far as like nutrition and what's good for you, like that's something I hope is on the up and up.
That's right. This is such a great topic because, kind of being in nutrition, one thing that and this is again my perspective, is that I never want to shame people for the foods that they eat.
Mm-hmm.
I carry that same thing because that's how I was taught to not judge people, and being a woman of faith, that's kind of ingrained in me. But at the same time, I believe that, according to the Bible, the earth, the world, humankind started in a garden. So me, I believe that there's so much power in gardens, and even those who do not believe in the Bible, you don't have to, but I believe that the garden has a way of uniting people and kind of reconciling us as individuals as well. It unites us over food. It unites us over something so simple as in organic as a plant, right? And there's peace to it. That's when you were saying this, like just being able to go out there and spend a few moments just kind of grounding yourself. There's power in that. And I believe also that, uh, it's going to open our awareness back to what is true and what is good. And somehow, perhaps it was the Industrial Revolution and just everything becoming so focused on productivity, work, career, that we have gotten away from that. We've gotten away from what does it mean to truly, understand good food, and not just
Mm-hmm.
stuff in your face and you get energy to keep going, but no, what does it mean to truly like feed yourself, feed your family, feed your body, feed your community? That's what I want to foster. That I want to promote that, and
Yeah.
uh, the garden can do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I laugh when I'm scrolling through TikTok or Instagram and I see these dudes there. They got like 1,000 trays. They're planting seeds like really fast, and I'm thinking like, dude, I'll sit outside and plant one tray of seeds, and
Yeah.
I'll sit there and have me a beer, sit there, watch the sunset,
Mm.
plant some seeds, and just enjoy myself. And I'll do one tray in like
Yeah.
2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's just, I feel like it's so much more enjoyable,
Mhm.
Well,
to do
there's
something like
definitely
that.
like that meditative space that you
Oh
get to
my
like
God,
zone
yes.
out. And like I backstory me a little bit, I manage anxiety that I clinically have, and gardening is a huge piece of that and helping me get. I was a kind of a common gardener, like I gardened for a decade plus in my 20s and into my 30s, but in grad school I delved right into it. It helped me manage basically all of grad school, doing scientific research. I would come home and I would just, like what you said, Dustin, like hour just gardening,
Yeah.
not talking to anybody, and it was very meditative. It made me very present, and that was pretty cool. And even if, and this is for all the Facebook listeners who are beginner gardeners, my first strawberry. You grow strawberries like all year. It was like, and I got one strawberry out of it. Do you know how good that one strawberry tasted? That was
It's
the
so
best
worth it,
strawberry I
dude.
have ever had.
It is so freaking worth it, dude. Someone's been telling. So I heard a rumor that celery that you grow yourself
Hmm.
tastes so much different than the celery. And I have never had luck growing celery, and I've
Right.
always wanted to. But someone told me that celery that you grow will taste so much different
Mhm.
than the stuff you get at the store.
I
And
believe it.
I've been wanting to try it every year. I just have no luck
I
growing
mean,
stuff like that.
tie it back to figs. Like a fresh fig off the tree is like mounds and mounds different than what you see in a grocery taste in the grocery store, because they don't have a good shelf life, right? And so
Right.
that's why so many people grow their own trees, so you can get that
Exactly.
truly ripe fig. And I mean, that's when I traveled Europe to go to find out where my family was from in Italy, and I that's when I had that fresh fig, and that's when I was like, whoa, 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 that's what a fig tastes like, you know? And I think that is true for a lot of fruits and veggies that we grow. When you bite into like a fresh piece of kale, like right out of the off the plant, you're like, wait a second. And so, like, that's what pumps us up, obviously, here on this garden party.
Oh my, yeah, it's
That's so fascinating because when we think about, and this isn't really, I want to be careful with the way I say this because I don't want to speak from a place of privilege where I recognize that I do have access to all of this variety of foods in a garden, and not everyone
Mhm.
has that, right?
That's a good
So,
reminder.
even from a farmer's market, you can still get, this really great fresh foods. But that's not to say that when you pick a tomato off of a vine, or when you take a cucumber off of straight off the plant, it's something about the crisp and the freshness.
Hmm.
It's a whole different type, oftentimes a whole different type of nutritional profile even.
Oh.
Um, Shelf life of things, like what it has to go through to be transported, to be stored, to be, you've got wilting that takes place. Then you've got, so much stuff like plants are going to naturally degrade once they come off of the vine or from
Hmm.
their source plant. So it's really, it's just different to be able to taste the crisp and freshness of something. And a lot of folks don't even know where most of these vegetables and produce, the items that we eat regularly, where they come from. Like they don't
Yeah.
know how
oh
they
yeah,
grow or how they're produced. And I love being able to show people that through the garden. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's definitely like our number one fan in the chat, Craig. He was saying he said
What's up,
it's
Craig?
not just the taste and the freshness of growing your own food. It's the pride of doing something yourself, and
that's
you
right.
don't have to go to
Hmm.
the store to buy it.
That's right.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. There's the first time you, like Phil was saying, you try your own strawberry, and
Yeah.
like I grew up a super picky eater, and I'm still kind of a picky eater. Um, growing the stuff myself, I've come to start enjoying different things. Like just because I was like, well, if I grow it, I got to try it. And then
Mhm.
Right.
I try it again, or for the first time, I'm like, ooh, I like this.
Hmm.
Squash and zucchini. Like my dad would garden growing up, but he would grow the squash and the zucchini. And I sometimes it's just the way they're cooking it, but I didn't like
Hmm.
it. But when my wife made it, I was like, I like this stuff. So it's definitely interesting to and I think having the internet with a large quantity of like recipe options nowadays that are like
Yeah.
readily available, you can find recipes that will make anything taste good.
That's
Like
true.
nowadays, it's so crazy.
That's true.
Yeah,
Good
Destin, I
night.
was really, oh, sorry.
Go
All right.
go
Go
go ahead,
ahead,
Dustin.
Phil.
No, I was just going to comment, Destin, that recipe of the squash chips you made, I would never in a million years think to make those squash chips, and they looked phenomenal.
Dude, dehydrating things is probably the easiest way to get people to try something.
Yeah. Mm,
Because think about okra. Okra is usually so
yeah,
slimy. You dehydrate it, put a little seasoning on it, and it's not
that's
bad.
right.
It's really
Mm,
not bad. It's not bad at all. That dehydrated a dehydrator is a great investment, dude. I
Nice.
love it.
dehydrated okra is amazing, but okra is like my thing, period, because we make gumbos in our family, and
Oh yeah.
oh, it's
You're
nothing
you're
like
you're all about the slime. You're all
all
about the
about the
slime.
slime. Okay, the seedy stuff, the seediness. Yes, I love it. But I wanted to actually, you said something that was so profound, Dustin, that we
That's
just kind of
rare.
went
No,
over, like that we just like went over it, and I was like, wait, what? Like, we need to just kind of make space for this because you said something about, we hear it all the time, start small. But then you told the story about you really taking time and being intentional about what you're seeding. And here you are, you're doing incredible work in the gardening space. You're growing, you're so productive with everything that's coming out of your gardens. But when you said like taking time to just seed this one tray, like even and it's not a knock to social media, but and I can even put myself in there. We want to produce so much.
yeah,
And
Mhm.
for you to say like focus on, the quality, right? And not necessarily the quantity. I don't know. I just wanted to like highlight that because especially for we're getting ready to go into the spring season. People are so excited about growing stuff. I'm excited. But that is something that I've really learned. And I think that you spoke, brought light to something that is so important. And that's really just helping us to not get burned out this season
Yeah.
and as a gardener, but being really intentional about what you grow and then making sure that you're taking care of yourself as you're preparing to seed start. So I don't know. I just wanted to applaud
yeah.
you for
It
that.
it is. Thank you. I appreciate it. Actually, it's so easy to get burnt out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's especially so. An average gardener. So I work 4 days a week,
Mhm.
and Friday, Saturday, Sunday I'm off, and so that's all the time I'm gardening, doing meetups and stuff. I don't have any children, so the time they like everybody else is like going to soccer practice. I'm in the garden. I'm growing figs. I'm growing whatever. So I'm doing all that, and at the same time, I'm recording myself. So if you're recording yourself doing something, it'll take 2 to 3 times as long, and then you edit.
Hmm.
And so, it is. I have to try to be as efficient and, like you said, deliberate as possible with what I'm growing, because it's so easy to go out there and throw a million seeds in a bed and just see what grows. You don't know what we talked about this last week. I think was about everybody wants to grow the newest, coolest looking tomato, and they have no idea if they're going to like it. And my wife, last year about killed me because I grew a bunch of different varieties, but I didn't grow any early girls. I didn't grow any early girls, and those are like her number one that she likes. And so
Mhm.
this year I made an effort. I said, okay, I'm going to grow a ton of early girls, and then I will try a couple of the new ones. But like you got to grow the stuff you actually eat, and then
Hmm.
you can do a little experimenting, but make sure you're being deliberate, like you were saying. That is a good point,
That's right.
I mean, that's a big
Mister.
piece of like growing peppers for me was literally to supplement something that I eat every Tuesday night with tacos. So like in the summer and like just knowing that I'm going to have five pepper plants or five peppers all summer into fall, like it's because it's something that I knew I'd love to grow. And yeah, it came with time because my first pepper was this big. And then I had two more plants and three more plants and four more plants. And then, yeah, now I'm here.
I had a humbling experience recently, and because I do a lot of work in the community or around community gardens, and
Yeah.
one of the some of the folks, the neighbors, they said, we just like all of the varieties. That's great and all, but we want to make sure that we have enough of what we like to eat,
Yeah.
like. that was a huge check. And that's anyone that's doing community work. Sometimes we're like, oh, go and flood in abundance with variety and eat the
Mhm.
rainbow. And I'm talking about myself, okay?
Mhm.
Eat the rainbow, all of this stuff. But it's like, how do we meet people where they are? And that kind of goes back to that thing that I was talking about, like, really being mindful of people's diets, being mindful of the foods that people like. And I made it my agenda. I was like, man, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Because what that says is that people are willing to eat produce, like, nutritious foods, but it's
Right.
really just a matter of give the people what they want. If they want like, if
Yeah.
they want to only eat collards, you better grow a bunch of
Just grow
collards.
a bunch of collards, right?
That's right. And so I had to really kind of humble myself to say, don't introduce kohlrabi. Yeah, but don't make that like an abundant, like don't grow a bunch of that when you could be taking up space for more things that people enjoy.
Right.
Peppers, collards, mustards, turnips, carrots. These are the things that they want. And there's nothing wrong with sticking with those quote unquote basic, which
Yeah.
are not really basic at all. But there's nothing wrong with that. And so, I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying, Dustin, making sure that people like be mindful, explore, experiment, yes, but if you're in the community, make sure that you're growing stuff that people actually can relate to and that would actually enjoy, and then just kind of expand from there.
I
Yeah.
think that's a good reminder that a garden is an extension, it becomes an extension of you, right? And your
Right.
interests, and you and the garden will grow together. So
That's right.
whatever you want to put in, you'll get out. It may not be, and that's like anything, any endeavor you take on, give yourself grace and give yourself time and move it at a sustainable cadence and let it grow into something.
I love
Yeah.
it.
And bumper crops are like a good way of doing that. So
Hmm.
I had never really paid much attention to what to heirloom or you know hybrids or determinate or indeterminate. Well, this year I'm actually going to start paying more attention to my determinate and indeterminate varieties. I did probably more determinate varieties than I've ever done, so that I could do like a rapid succession of tomatoes and get that crop of tomatoes before it gets real hot and I start getting no tomatoes because it just goes from like spring. We have like a month of spring, and then it's just hot for like 6 months. It's just going to be hot, hot, hot. And you can combat it. You can combat it with shade cloth, but like you can only if it's not like last year. It didn't rain for like 3 months. Nothing is. You're not getting tomatoes if it doesn't
Mm.
rain like ever. If it's 100 if it's 100 degrees and it doesn't rain for 3 months, you're not getting a whole bunch of tomatoes, and the pest pressure is unreal. And so I so I'm really going to focus on those determinate varieties this year, and yeah, I agree with you. It's so cool, like when you get that Baker Creek catalog, and the front of it's got like that new tomato, and it looks so cool. You're like, oh, I gotta try this, and then your wife is waking up. It's while you're sleeping. Did you plant the early girls? Oh, I forgot. It's but I got myself covered this year. I planted a ton of it. So
There
I,
you
I,
go.
I highly recommend anybody who's growing tomatoes try the early girls. I got a question over here, and this might be a good question for you, Ashley. They said I've been trying to figure out why my homegrown tomatoes don't last as long as store bought tomatoes. And there's probably a bunch of different reasons for that. The stuff they
Mhm.
I'm not a scientist like y'all. Um, but I can let y'all talk about that.
So I'm just going to give a little bit of perspective, but Phil, I'm sure that you have an even broader perspective, and you, Destiny, you might have a broader perspective too. But the homegrown tomatoes, typically we pull them when they are ripe. So they've gone through, they're ready to be eaten, fresh off the vine typically. If you do pull them once they're green, I mean, it's going to extend that ripening process. But, with the store bought tomatoes, they're pulling them before they're ripened. And that's to help them so that they don't over ripen by the time they get to the supermarkets. Typically, I'm sure you guys have heard that they try to speed up the ripening process. That also kind
Yep.
of interferes a little bit with the development of the fruit, but they speed up the ripening process by adding either some type of ripening agent to these under-ripened produce, and that's really to kind of give it that that ripe look once they hit the supermarket. They're going to taste a bit differently because they did not fully develop on the vine, and it wasn't like a natural development. So they had like a little bit of artificial ripening in that process, and so that's probably why your tomatoes, really spoil like a couple of days later, is because
That's
you're
true.
picking them like fresh, and they're really at that point of starting to degrade or decompose at that point. So just a little bit, I welcome you guys to give a little more brevity to that.
You touched on a lot of the things I was going to touch on. There's ripening agents. Is it? That's not boron, is it? But
It's a
and
gas
that
that they,
I
it's a
think
gas,
yeah,
ethylene, is it some type of
ethylene,
ethylene
ethylene.
base.
ethylene
Yeah.
gas, and so and you can, if she wants to, she can pick those tomatoes a little early and put them on the windowsill, and they will ripen over time. Those starches will convert to sugars. I know that figs don't operate that way, so not every plant will operate that way. But um, but for tomatoes, you
Uh,
can do that if you want them to last a little longer. But there's nothing like letting it ripen on the vine. If you can get away with it without any pests or any other critters doing the nature tax, I would say try to let it ripen on the vine. It'll also be more nutrient dense for you there too.
Big Daddy Phil, I have actually heard the opposite, that you can force a fig to ripen faster by putting a drop of olive oil over the eye of the fig.
Oh my gosh.
And that is supposed to, so this is what I've heard, and I have not tried it, but apparently if you were to take like a Q-tip and you put in a little bit of olive oil
Okay.
and you cover the eye of the fig with just that drop of olive oil, that it's
Okay.
supposed to trap the gases in the fig and cause it to ripen faster. And it's supposed to manipulate it like they do, like they ripen tomatoes faster.
Off the
Because I
tree.
guess,
So if we
yes,
pull it under right from
that's
the
what I've heard.
tree.
Google
Oh
it.
my
Google it
gosh.
afterwards.
I'm so
Yeah.
fascinated because I'm like, what is the ripening process doing? Like, what is that fat doing to
Well,
I
yeah.
went mentally down into a very dark place just now, trying to figure this out. What is happening there?
It's definitely worth a try, Phil. It's definitely worth a try
Okay.
on the figs.
Well,
But
yeah,
that,
actually,
but no,
figs are fascinating because it's a synconium wrapped around a bunch of like 100 fruits on a little flower on the inside, and it's all inverted in. And so each individual one has to ripen on its own. It turns into this big nice jelly packet. That's amazing. But I have to try this now. That if there is gases present that it creates on its own in that
and you're
void, because there
trapping
is a
it.
void on the inside. Um, dang! So it
Yeah,
begins a new experiment.
This
yeah,
is curious. I'm going to follow you. Please
yeah.
document this because
Yes,
I need
yes.
to know.
What I tell you, Ashley, after every podcast, somebody besides me gets a good idea for like a video, and it does really well. Going back to the tomatoes, though, yeah, I think if we look back a little bit in time, people didn't, but back before like we had these big refrigerators and big freezers. If you wanted dinner, you had to go to the grocery store that day
Yeah.
and get your food. In Europe, it's still like that a lot, where they're going to the market every day and getting their food fresh that day. Food is not supposed to last like that long in the fridge, like And going back to like when do I pick my tomatoes? So I must live in like the Bermuda Triangle of like mockingbird hell here in Texas, because I have so many mockingbirds in my area that if I let my tomatoes go a certain shade of orange, they're going for them. And so
Oh my gosh.
I am a textbook early picker, and I'll have my entire kitchen table just full of like pink tomatoes, like gradually getting ripe. So my tomatoes last quite a while, and if your homegrown tomatoes are starting to to, go overripen way too fast, you got to get on that canning game. You got to get on the canning game. You got to get on that
Mhm.
freezing game.
Right.
There's so many ways to preserve tomatoes.
Mhm.
Whether you're freezing them, you're canning them, you can do a million different things. And it's a shame to waste a good tomato. It's a shame.
So I have a question about
Yeah.
the tomatoes things, and I don't know the research behind this. I'm gonna just be very frank that I saw like a documentary. I don't even know like who did it, but I saw that they were preserving tomatoes in ash. And that was like extending the tomatoes for like months. Don't even know if
Like
Months.
soda ash or
that's
like
right.
ash, like.
I don't know what kind of ash it is, but they were using just ash. They were covering, dumping, and burying these tomatoes in some type of ash. And I was curious how that worked, and how they were able to preserve these tomatoes. Don't know. Maybe that's for someone to research that, if you have information on that, or if I'm even getting the whole thing wrong. You
Hmm.
let me know.
And they come out like not dehydrated or anything like that.
Not
Like they come.
dehydrated, no, just they're
Mm,
preserved. It's so interesting. It reminds me of kind of like salt preserving something,
yeah,
but you're doing it in some type of ash, which is, I think, mineralized as a salt anyway.
So it
that's
must be
very
maybe
interesting.
capturing gases to prevent or prevents it from off the rot from happening from off gassing. I don't know
That's
because it would still
I
happen
would
internally.
think that's right. And so I'm thinking like, I don't know. I didn't allow like myself to research it because there's just so much to explore. But I'm curious as to, what that is. But apparently it's a method that had been used, for a very long time. If I'm completely wrong, don't DM me, okay?
Uh, so Craig just pulled up a link in the chat on Facebook. If you go look at Facebook, he pulled up a link. So there definitely maybe something to it.
Interesting.
But obviously eating the fresh tomato is gonna be best. It's
Yeah,
gonna. I mean, unless you're making tomato sauce or whatever, that's pretty good too. But
that's
like
Oh,
nothing's
Craig's
better
on it.
than like a dude. Craig is like gonna be our producer at some point. Like
And
that's
he's
awesome.
stoked on
So
radishes. Radishes will
yeah, he's a
ripen quickly for you.
yeah.
nice.
Do you do a lot of radishes, Phil?
I have them this year. I did a lot of radishes research this year, and they're like 25 days. You can just pop them in, pop them out. So I'm ready to jump on them. I got these ones called they didn't make the top 10 from 2 episodes ago, but they're like French something. And they're like longer.
French breakfast. French
Yes, French
breakfast radishes.
breakfast.
Oh, those are like standard. Those are like standard, man. Well, guess what?
I'm a noob.
I brought the broad fork. I bought the little mini broad fork to do my
Oh,
bed. So
that thing is
I'll
like,
I'll, I'll be doing some videos on bed prep for the spring garden. Um,
oh, nice.
and I'm kind of torn, like on whether I'm gonna start my cucumbers. I told myself I'm not gonna start cucumbers and squash inside. I'm just gonna direct seed them, but I'm so tempted to do it because everything else is doing so good. Like I'm so tempted.
You put a little
I'm
greenhouse box
tempted
on
to do
top
it.
of them.
Well,
I just did
it's
such a
just
great job killing them last year when I transplanted them, so I
yeah, it's
can't
the
do that again.
transplant shock.
I
It's
have
the
two questions.
yeah.
One, radishes. Do you guys eat the tops? Because those are
You
really
can.
great
I
They're
heard
eating.
you can. I eat the
they're
Yeah,
beet. I
very
eat
good.
beet greens a lot. Beet greens are a big thing for me. I like them more than the beets themselves. And just like
right.
olive oil, garlic, put them on
Mhm.
focaccia bread, put them on pizza. Like they're bomb.
That's
The
right.
And
radish
they're quick
tops
for
are
you.
really good, actually. The radish tops are they're just as peppery.
That's right.
They're kind of like arugula. I would say like they're very similar to arugula.
Gosh,
Oh, I like that.
very much so. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
Just throwing that
stoked.
out there that a lot of times people don't realize that you can have the foliage of these plants
oh
as
yeah.
well. And a lot of times people do, but it's just a way of kind of maximizing eating, because I'm all about eating stuff. I will eat something out of the garden in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are just other options that we can just like incorporate in dishes.
Have you gone down you grow okra? So
Or
have you gone down the okra rabbit hole where you can like eat the leaves and eat the
Oh, I do.
stem?
I actually eat the leaves. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Tell me
Okra
about it. Tell me your
leaves are
process.
delicious. You can boil them down the way you would do like collard greens or like saute bok choy or something like that. I like them sauteed with garlic, believe it or not, or cooked like collard greens. They're just they're delicious. And I will say it's better to pick them once they're younger because the bigger that they get, the more fibrous that they are, and it's a little bit harder to eat. If you like to chew stuff like cud and stuff, go for it. But I like tender, the smaller tender leaves. Same with like loofah plants. Yes, you can have eat the fruits when they're young and tender, but you can also eat the leaves and the blossoms. Okra blossoms are delicious. You
Yeah.
can eat all of these things.
I've definitely eaten okra blossoms, and one of my favorite ways to eat okra actually is when they're like the size of like your pinky.
That's right.
Just go out there and get them when they're tender. Like
Mhm.
they're so good. Like that's a good slime right there.
It
But
is.
so don't the leaves like on the okra kind of like like sometimes they make me itchy when like they contact my arm. Do they are they like super spiny? Like how do you get them from not being like kind of sticky and spiny? Just the boiling takes it away.
That's right. The boiling takes it away.
Right.
Yep, it's really kind of like a reaction that we have to that stickiness, and a lot of times I don't know really what the plant morphology of it is, but yes, when you feel it, it does have a stickiness to it. But that goes away once you boil it or once you saute it. You're not gonna get any kind of prickly sensation in your mouth.
Is it like a full on boil or like a blanch?
I honestly, I when I prepare these types of leafy greens, I do like a mix between sauteing and blanching. So not full on sauteing, but at the same time blanching that thing just a little bit and then putting it in a pan, throwing in some other vegetables. I like to make it with peppers. It's
This
a
is
great green.
this is right up Phil's alley. This sounds like it's
Well, no, because like
right
in
up his.
summer, like I got into the habit of I had all going in the heat of the summer here, not Texas heat, but it's 90s all summer till whenever, and it would be like cherry tomatoes, peppers, and okra, and I would just like dice all that up, and that was just accompanied breakfast. It could accompany dinner, and it was just like an awesome power punch of good food.
Yep.
I
Throw some okra leaves in there.
so I
Awesome.
grew a
That's good to
squash.
know.
I grew a squash last year, and
Mm-hmm.
it said that the stems could be cooked like noodles. It's so
Mm.
the little tubes, you take
Mm-hmm.
them, cut them, and then you take like a knife and scrape some of the spines off, boil
Mm.
them, and it says you can cook them like noodles. And I was like, that is gonna watch me bite into like a vine borer or something like that when I do it. But like, but like, I might try that this year. I think people are always so nervous about like bugs and stuff. I get so many I get so many comments and questions about ants, ants in the raised beds, ants in my. I've got ants in my raised beds. I'm like, dude, everybody's got ants in their raised
I
beds.
have
Like,
ants in my greenhouse right now. Like you just don't bother them too much. Just let them do the thing. And then I have
it's
anoles, and anoles come in, they eat other insects, like, and then
yeah.
yeah.
It's like someone at one time said, I've got spiders in my garden, and
Mm.
I was like, okay. It's like
You know what it
good.
reminds me of? People ask me when I go surfing, they're like, "Are there sharks in the water?" And I was like,
That's different.
if the
That's
water's salty, there are sharks in the
no,
water.
no,
I'm
dude.
like,
That's
probably.
that. That is not the same thing, Phil. That is not the same thing.
Well, I mean, technically it is. It's
It
kind of
is.
like if the garden is in the environment with these organisms, with these, insects. Um, it's almost like, yeah, I would expect to have all of these things there.
Right. It
Um,
is not a. It's not a grocery store. It's a garden, and that's okay.
But I feel it because you like, oh my gosh, there's so many ants just crawling on everything. Is
Yeah.
this normal? It's kind of like, well, they're hungry too. Or they want like the shelter. And so if you see all of these like animals and insects kind of coming in your space, that means that you're building a safe haven. You're building something that they actually want to be in. You can keep them at bay, but just kind of let them do their thing, work around them.
Oh, I always tell people, I mean, it's hungry country out there. Everybody's hungry. You got your own little biosphere out in the
That's right.
backyard, and you're creating this environment. If I've got ants like crawling up my okra and they're biting into the pods and they're
Yeah.
putting aphids in there, like, it's so cool to like. Is it a symbiotic relationship that the aphids and the ants have? Is it symbiotic or I forget or parasitic?
Not
I'm not.
symbiotic, yeah,
Yeah,
because the aphids carry like they're eating the sugars
The
from the
dew off
plant.
of them.
That's right.
yeah, yeah.
And then the ants are attracted to them, and so they're kind of,
Farming them.
I think that's
There's,
right.
Yeah.
yeah, I would say there's definitely a threshold, right? I call it the nature tax. Like, I want
Mhm.
at least some of the fig squirrels. Like, come on, don't take
That's
all
right.
of them.
Dude, I'm
Like,
so
okay, pine, like the squash boars. Like, I need at least one cucumber. Just back off a
Right.
little bit, or we're gonna like, this will be a
dude,
consequence maybe.
I'm so happy I don't have squirrels yet, dude. I'm so happy I don't have squirrels in my
Mm,
house. It is.
Yeah.
I just got the mockingbird. That's all I got. That's all I got.
dang.
You're blessed, man, because I'm becoming like Katniss, man, from like Hunger Games. Just like,
Hey, you're that homestead
If
life,
you
oh,
dude.
do
You'll be
that,
eating
if
some
you do that,
squirrels.
you gotta film that. I gotta see that.
it's like Jumanji out there. Like
It is,
all of
yeah.
the animals want our stuff. And I'm like, I love nature. And then I'm like, what's the minute?
Oh my god. Well, we've all got those friends that like don't hurt the squirrel. It's there.
Right.
Like whenever. So that video I posted with the possum, I had to relocate that possum because it was it got to where it's like 3 out of 4 nights my dog was and that possum were getting into it in the backyard. I didn't care if he was eating my figs. I didn't care about that. But it was for his safety. And I got so many comments. What if that possum had babies and you? I was like, dude, come on, man. I was like, it's, and I've got other friends that, they talk about how they love the squirrels and the squirrels can do this. And I will say this Gardening with Des talked about that. And then she literally sent me a video of her trying to hand feed a squirrel and she got bit. So, like, they're wild animals. They're wild animals. And sometimes it's you or them, and I heard squirrel tastes really good. I've heard
It does.
squirrel
I heard
is
it tastes good, like
very.
a squirrel stew. I
I would eat
mean,
a squirrel in a heartbeat, especially if
imagine
it's
if those
been.
squirrels had been living off of figs for a few
Oh
months.
my
Who knows?
god, it'd be so tender. It'd be so delicious. Sorry if you're
For
a
the
vegetarian,
record, I
Ashley.
haven't eaten any squirrels, but yeah,
I
I just heard the
haven't. I
stories.
haven't. I will though. At some point, I will.
That's right. I feel like you're over there near, we're all in the South pretty much, but,
Mhm.
you know, I haven't had squirrel, but I mean, but I've had different other things. So like alligator and you know, I
Yeah,
could
Oh yeah,
probably get fired. I've had deer and stuff, so I mean,
I've had
I'd
rabbit.
try it.
I've
I'd
had
try.
rabbit too.
I've had
Rabbit's
rabbit.
relatively
So
normal in Italy, but yeah.
I can't imagine that rabbit and squirrel are too far off as far as like their level of gaminess.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't know. But guys, we are past an hour, and I don't want to hold you up. And I really appreciate y'all coming on. Phil, real quick, tell everybody where they can find you. You still got fig cuttings for sale. Let everybody know where they can come get your cuttings, dude.
Yeah, hey everyone. I've got fig cuttings on philsfigs.com. I have them on Instagram. So check those stores there. I have them on Facebook as well. I need to pay more attention to Facebook. And Dustin's really helping me engage more with it. But I'm on all the social media platforms except for X and TikTok, which is finite. I might be on TikTok soon. But it's Phil's Figs. Reach out to me anytime, any questions. Happy to answer fig questions for you. And I do have some other gardening skills as well. But I love figs, so I can talk to the end of days on figs and set anyone up with a fig tree.
And Fig Friday on YouTube.
And yeah, Phil's Fig Fridays every Friday, sometimes Saturday because of editing, but they're filmed on Fridays.
Nice, nice, absolutely, yeah. And you'll have T-shirts soon too, right?
I have t-shirts now. I'm trying to get some hats
Okay.
and some other swag going, but if you want a Phil's Fig t-shirt, I would love the support. So thanks, Big Bam.
Phil, thanks for coming on. You're a constant on the Garden Party podcast. I love you, dude. You need
Love
to
you too,
write
man.
a fig book, dude. And Miss
Yes,
Ashley,
please.
will you tell everybody where they can find how to become a gardener and tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes, you can find my book, How to Become a Gardener, really at any major book retailer, and that's online or in person all around the country. But you can also just kind of communicate with me via Instagram, Facebook, and through my website, themochagardener.com, or on all of the social media platforms, except for X and TikTok, which I will be trying to migrate to TikTok soon through the Mocha Gardener, simply put. But I like to talk with people. So feel free to send a message. We're going to be really cranking up, getting our homestead, and we're going to be tracking all of the things to develop this raw land into this beauty of what we've created here, house here, but in a bigger way on our new homestead. So we look forward to having you guys along. Thank you.
Absolutely. Are y'all gonna be doing it on YouTube as well? Like you're gonna be
Yes.
like
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of content. We're going to have to talk about there's just so many things that we want to cover, and I really want to tie in some really important environmental aspects to kind of developing land in a very responsible way, and we'll be putting that on YouTube. And of course, the Mocha Gardener. I try to keep it
awesome,
simple for people.
awesome. No, I cannot recommend enough for everybody to once you come up with a name that you're gonna be called, go sign up for it
Yeah.
on every single channel so you can get it. Because I am Texas Garden Guy on everything. I've got an X, but I cannot keep up with Twitter. I'm not calling it X, it's Twitter. Um, um, I'm on every platform known to man besides Twitter, and whatever. Yeah, I think that's it. And I'm not on. I'm not on. What's the new YouTube? Is it not Grinder? I was a Grinder. That's not a Grinder. That's I forget. But yeah, you can find me everywhere. I will be at Enchanted Gardens in Richmond, Texas this weekend, Saturday from 10 to 2. I'm doing a garden event. There are over 140 people that have signed up to be there. And because
Wow.
this is my first big event of the year, I will be giving away a Vigo. I think it's a 10-in-1 bet. I'm taking a Vigo 10-in-1 bed to give away. We'll do raffle tickets and we'll give away a Vigo bed at the class today on Saturday. So looking forward to that. You can see all my events on my Facebook page, and we will be here every Thursday on the Garden Party podcast with me, Phil, and whoever else. We got some big stuff planned. I'll keep Ashlie. Ashlie, we would love to have you back
Yes.
Yeah,
again.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and appreciate y'all coming and hanging out with me for a little bit.
Thank you.